10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
How you doing? Welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. And if you can guess it, I'm alone in the suite. Oh! Unfortunately, Mia was not able to make it for tonight's Besties Night In, but welcome to you all. And hey, she says hey to you all, and she'll see you probably maybe the next week. We'll have to see. But we're gonna have a good time, right? So again, welcome to my channel and welcome to Besties Night In. Now, although I'm alone in the suite here, it's still me and you guys, right? I mean, we're all still together. We're all still hanging out. So we're all gonna still have good fun. And we need to have a lot of fun for Mia's sake as well. So we can kind of just, let her know how good of fun we had. And then she'll be like, oh no, I wish I was there. But no, it's just one of those things, sometimes we can be here, sometimes we can't. So we're just going to keep on moving anyways. But, well, you know what? Before we get into that next part there, first of all, how are you guys doing? Okay, let me know in the comment section below. Please let me know how you're doing. This has been such a week. When I say such a week, oh my gosh, such a week. I mean, look, I love the things that I am working on. I feel so fulfilled and so inspired. But when I tell you it pulls everything, it pulls everything. So how you guys doing, right? How's your week's been going? Have you gotten to do anything that you want to do this week? Or what do you think you're going to be getting into this weekend? Because for me, I don't really know yet. Maybe some rest. Yeah, hopefully some rest. We'll just have to see, right? But hey, I love a Friday night, and I love these Besties Night In. I really do enjoy these. So hey, again, welcome. And if you are new here, well, welcome to the family, because this is what we do on Besties Night In. We just have a chilled out evening, just getting into all kinds of shenanigans. And yeah, I've got one for you today as well, which I'm pretty excited about, because I was sitting there thinking like, well, what are we gonna do for Besties Night In if it's just gonna be me and you guys, right? What are we gonna do? I mean, right, I gotta steer this ship, right? Well, I got a little bit of a treat, I guess. Hopefully it's a treat. I mean, it is one for me because I love doing this. Now, you guys know that I enjoy watching movies. That is one of my favorite pastimes. I mean, really, it is so much fun to just kind of relax and veg out on the couch and just kind of go into a space where you don't have to think about anything, you don't have to make any decisions about anything. You can just laugh and be entertained. So yeah, I'm really excited for the event, if I will. But before we get into that, well, you know what it is. It's time for Cocktail of the Evening. Well, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to disappoint you guys because I didn't do much of a cocktail. But hey, I got it in a pretty glass. Yes, indeedy, I got it in a pretty glass. So I am drinking water this evening. And my body is so thankful for it. But that doesn't mean that you cannot relax and have yourself a nice little cocktail of your choosing. But do remember that, of course, the drinking age here in the United States is 21. Make sure you're drinking responsibly. And yes, no drinking and driving. So now that we've got the housekeeping out of the way, I just wanted to tell you how refreshing this glass of ice cold water is. And I do have it in my festive glass. I decided I wanted dolphins because I think I'm thinking of beach time right now. We'll see what happens. but it's so refreshing. It just is. So yes, that is my cocktail for this evening. Now, Mia usually has some kind of nice fruity drink with a pretty color and a whole lot of nice goodness inside. So I'm sorry that I was a little boring this week on this one, but I'll try it better next time. So now that we have done that and we've gotten all of our welcomes in, and also too, I'm noticing that I don't know, the internet connection is a little bit so yeah, you might see a couple of moments where I'm like kind of freeze mode, but hey, it is what it is. We're working with it. And it's Friday night, so we're just chilling, we're hanging out, and maybe it has something to do with what we're about to talk about, and maybe that's probably why it's giving a little bit glitch series here, but hey, it's okay, it's all good. I'm prayed up, it's fine. So yeah, I guess with that, we will get into this evening's main event. Woo-hoo! And today's evening event, and that didn't really come out right, did it? It's kind of like a jumble of words. But for this evening's event, we are actually going to be doing a review, the first review of this would be a documentary. Yeah, here on the Besties Night-In from Motivation Suite. So I'm excited. I mean, look, I love movies and I love talking about movies and getting into real deep conversations with my hubby and friends and family members about movies. So why not do one here? And maybe it might give you an opportunity to go out there and check it out for yourself, because this was a really, really good one. Now, as I shared before, I really like watching movies. It's one of my favorite pastimes. You hear me talk about Lifetime all of the time, because Lifetime is where it's at. My gosh. I mean, I don't know if any of y'all have seen, Keeping Up with the Joneses yet. Oh, so good. You must get yourself hooked up onto that. Now, I did start the first of this year's seasons. It's actually 4 episodes this time. Yeah, 4 movies, which is really nice, because last year it was only 3. So being 4, I was like, whoo. I really do hope that there is going to be another one, because I don't know if it will, or can kind of get an idea that it will be, because I didn't get a chance to watch the whole 4 set of movies, but I am going to find a bingeable night, and that is exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to end up reviewing it here too, because I mean, why not? One of the things that I enjoy is going out on Netflix every now and again. And, you hear a lot of people who have all of their really cool options that they put out there, but sometimes I hear kind of the same ones. And so I like to explore. I mean, Netflix is a pretty big area, right? It's a pretty big streaming platform with lots of diversity, lots of different movies and programs and such. And I really do love a documentary. So I decided I was going to go down the list of the documentaries. Now, you may have also remembered that I have talked about how much I love Twilight. Look, I love Twilight. Twilight. It is one of my favorite vampire series. And I also do like Underworld as well. Me and the hubby used to watch that one. And we, when it was out in the theaters, every time it was out in the theaters, we'd make sure we get out there. And of course, we've watched the rerunning of it on TV and all of that good stuff. So we really do like a good vampire flick, and werewolf flick too. So yeah, I just was like, hey, I found something right up my alley. But I was a little perplexed, because I don't know, I didn't think it was going to kind of go that way, but I went for it anyways. So what I did, and I'm going to have to put my glasses on because I want to make sure I read everything correctly, is I went out to Netflix. Oh yes, and I took notes. Oh, I sure did. Yeah, because we need to make sure that we get all of the areas that I need to talk about with you guys. Because when I tell you, this situation was just out of control, it was just out of control. Now, there is a Netflix documentary out, and it's a series called The Unexplained by William Shatner. And can I just tell you how much William Shatner is a great host? Oh my gosh, he is such a good storyteller. I really like William Shatner. I mean, he's done so many different things, and he just got that voice that just really lends itself so well to storytelling. And so this was really perfect, and I'm sure he probably thought the same thing. But I happen to find that with the Unexplained series is there's like different phenomena that they cover, and I want to say it was like, I don't know, maybe 16, something like that episodes in there, and they just talk about some kind of phenomena that's unexplainable. And the one I chose was vampires and werewolves. And I thought, oh, this is right up my alley, because my goodness, I've talked about this, right? So the description of it is vampires and werewolves. Now, these fabled creatives, These fabled creatures have terrorized humanity's nightmares for centuries, but could they actually be real? So, when I saw that, I was kind of, maybe I should pick another documentary. But, I said, no, we're going to go right on into this one because I think this was going to interest me. And oh my gosh, did it interest me. Now, first of all, what it did is it was a really nice layout of, kind of sharing different aspects of vampirisms and werewolves and stuff like that. So if this is not something that you're really, really into, I still would give it a kind of a whirl just to take a look at it because it's, kind of just interesting, about folklores and kind of mythical things. It's okay. Now, they did give a bit of a grounding to this particular episode because they really did talk about how it could be kind of just one of those things that is like Among Us, which is like crazy. But, hey, I went there anyways, right? I'm prayed up, so we're good. But basically, the question that they wanted to ask was that could these creatures really be found in human nature? And that was the question. So why do we come up with vampires and werewolves? And what was the real point? And what do they really represent? And are they more closely representative of us as humans? Because, both vampires and werewolves are said to be, human at one point or half human and whatever the creature is. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. And even more that I'm thinking about it, the more like kind of spooked out a little bit I am, but it was still really good. Another movie that me and the hubby, we really enjoyed was the, I think it was Vlad, and it was like kind of the first vampire, Dracula. I'm sorry, it's called Dracula. And I thought that was such a good movie. And I felt so cheated that they didn't do a number 2, right? Now, the hubby says it's too late for a number 2. I think they did it in 2014. And I was just like, I want a number 2. I mean, it led itself to be a number 2. And it was such a great story. I mean, it really did play into some of the areas that they talked about in this documentary as to kind of what we see and view vampires as now versus maybe what they were at a certain point in time. So yeah, that was really cool. So they did talk about Vlad a little bit, the Impaler. I think I'm saying that right. And they also mentioned this other creature that was like wolf-like that they had showed, and I've never seen that. So I couldn't really remember the name of it, but you go out and take a look at that Netflix documentary, then you'll be able to see that. But they did talk about that, and they started off with a story about this guy named Jacques Saint Germain, who they think was probably like kind of almost like a living vampire, which is really crazy. He actually says that he was basically a descendant from French nobility. The interesting fact about him is that there was a Count Saint Germain that looks eerily the same to him, which actually was a picture of him when he was 40 years old. And it was in, I'm trying to see what time frame it was. I think it was in the 1700s. So, Now back to Jacques Saint Germain. Basically, there was what you would call in New Orleans, 1903, a lady of the night who was found and not in a good place. Okay, and it looked like she possibly had took a leap off of a balcony. It was 22 feet. Well, it didn't make a lot of sense to the individuals that happened upon this young lady that she would have just fell, maybe, or took a leap or jump. We don't know. Didn't seem too right. So they went, the authorities went and talked to this Jacques Saint Germain about this. And when they got there, they were a little surprised at some of the stuff that they had saw. Now, this Jacques Saint Germain is said to be someone who was fancied a bit of a ladies' man. And so she was this lady of the night was in his company and the last to have seen her. And he was also known for throwing these lavish parties, but never would eat anything. That's a bad hint, isn't it? And so they always saw that he just seemed to be fortified enough by what he was drinking, which would naturally look like Merlot. But was it? Once the authorities had happened upon this scene and went to go talk to Saint Germain, yes, that's his name, Jacques Saint Germain, about the situation, he ended up just, I guess it didn't seem like there was much conversation. And then they saw his wine collection and was a little bit astonished about the type of vintage that he had. And it was a little bit crazy. And then when it went back, I guess the next morning, because I guess they didn't want to take care of the situation then, he was gone. All of his furnishings and everything from the home was gone. He had just disappeared. And he was about 40 years old too. And so that's what they say is kind of important to remember, because they're kind of wondering if maybe he was here before and has never left. So yeah, that was a little bit creepy. But it was an interesting story nevertheless. And they say sometimes that they think that they've seen him wandering around in New Orleans. Now, if you've ever been to New Orleans, it's one of those places that is considered very spooky, very haunted, and there's a lot of things that go on out there. I'm just going to hold on to, yeah. Keeping that right next to me. So these kind of stories is not so crazy for them, they're kind of like, they're open to it, hey, it is what it is. But it was kind of interesting. And they did look back at this Count Saint Germain as well. And when they said in his time, he seemed to talk like he was from the 1500s. But this was in the 1700s. And he had messed up, and he was an alchemist. And he had messed up and had shared that he knew or found the fountain of youth, basically, or the way to everlasting life. And so I guess he just kind of disappeared too. And maybe reappeared back in 1903. I don't know. Kind of crazy, right? So the question is whether or not he is a descendant from who they are. It's interesting they have the same last name, or if it could be the very same person. So we don't know. But yeah, it was really, really crazy as far as that part of the documentary is. And then they went to a little bit more of a darker area, and I don't want to get into too many details. So if you're interested in watching it, you will go out there and take a listen, look at it as well. But it's, people kind of taking these things a little bit too a little bit too real, or like too serious. It's supposed to be fantastical, right? So it's not supposed to be something that's supposed to be real, and people thinking that they are. And so there was a gentleman that did that and created a coven for himself. I believe, where did they say he was? Out there in Kentucky. And 1995. And he was a troubled young man. He was 15 years old. Name was Rod Farrell, and he was a troubled young man. And unfortunately, his troubled youth led him into a pretty dark path. And he started really believing the hype of, being in a coven, being a vampire, getting really into that kind of stuff, and finding others who were like-minded in that viewpoint, which just kind of bolstered that concept up for him. So it was a little cray-cray. But unfortunately for him, his mother seemed to not really take it seriously, that she needed to really be there for him as an actual parental figure. Instead, she decided she wanted to join him and have a good time in the coven with him as well, which is very delusional, isn't it? But unfortunately, what ends up happening is that he ends up, I think a year later, because he's 15 years old at this particular moment in time that we're talking about. And so maybe, I guess, 16, he ends up going to a place in Florida and meets up with a young girl. And he meets up with a young girl, and she is lets him know by, I think through conversation on a phone or something like that, about how she was having a troubled situation at home. And, she blamed some family members for causing those dissensions. And so, Farrell thought he would take it upon himself to get a few of his goons and, go and remove the people from the situation. So he was though convicted, and he is now in jail. I do not know what the charges. I know what the charges are, but as far as his sentencing, I'm not really sure. But I'm pretty sure. I say I'm not sure, and I'm pretty sure I would imagine it's probably a life sentence or two. But yeah, if you want to go more in that story, you can. I didn't go too deep into that because it's a little too dark for me. So, but yeah, so there was that. So there's an individual who's, taking this stuff too dang seriously and thinking that this is what it is. And no, it's not. So they likened it to him, playing a game that he didn't realize that he couldn't take off that mask, right? Craziness. Okay, so then we move into the documentary about another case with a gentleman in New Orleans in 2019, and he fancies himself as a modern day vampire himself. Now, his story starts basically that he was a young child who was very sickly, and he was pretty much being bullied by one of his uncles, and he had gotten so upset by his uncle's bullying and teasing that he decided he wanted to go and handle him. So he did. And he actually bit him, and he bit him to the point of where he really hurt him, really hurt him. And so this is what set off the concept for him, thinking that he was a vampire as well, and having a need for the appetite of the red drink. We'll call it that. So yeah, it was kind of different. Okay, so yeah, it was interesting how he shared that he could tell by different types, if you were low on your potassium and magnesium, and if you had enough fatty acids, and even how well you were drinking, probably water. Staying hydrated and all that good stuff. It's a little crazy. But he was not as maybe so, he didn't seem to be as menacing as the other gentleman was. So yeah, and so that was an interesting part of the documentary as well. And so all along, as I'm listening to these stories, I'm just like, what about my Twilight, thing? What about my Underworld thing? Like, I enjoy vampires and werewolves that have like superpowers and all that kind of stuff. Like, I enjoy that. Like, that is so fun for me. So I was kind of, I don't know, down reading this. So we do flip into that arena, which is really, really good. Now, also too, one thing I will mention that they shared in the documentary is about certain things as far as why there is a love by vampires of the red drink. And one is because they consider that a life source. And when it's connected to the concept of, living forever, being immortal, well, of course, that's what they drink on in order to feed on. And basically, when you equate it to being that of a life source, and it's like you're taking life from someone else in a sense to enhancing your life. So that's where that part comes from. And that's the connection there. They also talked about how this one guy was, there was a couple of scientists and doctors on there, and they were talking about how one was asked the question, how come they never see their reflection? And they said, because if you see a reflection, you probably see yourself. So that was the connected point to how vampires, werewolves are connected to humans. So that was what that part was. I'm pretty sure that person just kind of said, okay, whatever, dude. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting way of saying that. He said it was actually a very easy answer to that. So yeah, that was kind of crazy. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning part. Let's see. So then we go into the werewolf area, okay? And I'm going to kind of skip a little bit because I want to maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should stay into this area. Okay, so how I was talking about the romanticizing, the fun part, right? Like, where's the powers? Like, where's the interesting situation when it comes to that? Like, I'm interested in the modern day way of things, right? I like that, and the romance and all that. I love that. So they do talk about the different versions and where one version leads to that. And so basically they talk about Bram Stoker, and probably a lot of you probably are aware of who he is. But in London, England, 1897, he wrote the book Dracula. And he talked about a lot of things. It was considered a literary masterpiece. And it also shared about how, you can get that cross feed where you could be a vampire and a werewolf. And the movie I thought about with that was like Underworld was that way. When they were starting off, how they had the different factions, the covens, and they were not to, mix, but they did. So there was a couple of them that were, and they were like super supernatural, right? With all these like fantastical powers and all that kind of stuff. And it was such a great movie when they talked about that and how that all came about and just all of those wonderful things. So yeah, so that's probably where that element came depicted, and also too, when you think about Underworld, there's like, a lot of evolution that goes along with the vampires, really ascending from a certain space and time and getting to, a really high hierarchy of a place when it comes to the end of the series. So I really felt connected that one, probably Bram Stoker's Dracula was probably some influence. I'm sure there's a lot of works that were influences for that, but that was one of them. So yeah, Anne Rice, she brought back the version of the vampire that would be the anti-hero. So instead of being the villain or the one to be feared, they were kind of, again, an anti-hero. They were dark and tragic, because they always had a sad story, right? They were desirable and romantic, and they turned more from less of a villain to more of a protector. So that was really cool. And some of the movies that I think about with that are like, Twilight, right? And Buffy the Vampire Slayer was one. As far as TV show, I don't know if any of you guys watched that, but I used to really like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It took me a little while to get into it, but once I did, yeah, I was hook, line, and sinker all the way. So that was good. They also mentioned, obviously, the Interview with the Vampire. I never saw that movie, and that was the one that had Tom Cruise in it, and was Brad Pitt in that one? I think so. But I hadn't seen that one. So if you've seen either one of these movies that I've mentioned, whether it be the Twilight series, if you watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or if you watched the Interview with the Vampire, drop it down in the comment section. I'd love to know, and tell me if you like them either way. Because I still to this day haven't seen that one, but I heard it was really, really good. And and of course, Anne Rice's version is also considered more of the modern take on what we see in Love and Revere. And also Vampire Diaries. If you think about the TV shows like the Vampire Diaries and the originals, and even Legacies is a little, but Vampire Diaries and originals really do tap into a lot of these areas. So that was really, really cool. So yeah, it was really, 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 really great documentary. It really was. I went through a lot of things. And I think that's the gist of the vampires. And then they flipped into the werewolf area. Some stuff about that I didn't even realize was even out there. But yeah, they talked about basically there is a location in Uinta County, Utah, where they have a creature they call like a skinwalker. And it's like this, I guess, this big type of werewolf type of a wolf is what they call them. And yeah, it's supposed to be an unthinkable creature, but it never seemed to hurt anybody. It just, just was around. But apparently I think it's called the, hope I'm saying this right, the Yotes, they're an Indian tribe. They feel like the grounds there at the Uinta County are considered cursed by another tribe. And so these skinwalkers are also considered shapeshifters, so they can make themselves look like, back and forth, flip from maybe human to creature or whatever. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. They also talked about a skinwalker ranch. Yeah, because we're going to go full throttle into that. Like if you ever watch Tremors, the movie, like they end up, fashioning the town behind the Tremors, the whatever that animal or beast was. So it kind of, reminds me of that a little bit. But there was a rancher who bought some land there with his wife in 1994, they say. And basically, I guess they heard voices outside and they saw this really large wolf that was, didn't look like a normal wolf would look. And it did go after one of their calves. And so they tried to stop him with a, something to stop him with. And it didn't faze him. Didn't faze him at all. And when he was done, messing with the calf, he just pretty much just kind of gallantly walked away. I mean, it was as if he wasn't penetrated by anything that was done to him to stop him from attacking the calf. So yeah, it was quite interesting. Yeah, it was quite interesting. Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know, when they talk about UFOs, when they had like the crop circles and stuff like that in different areas, they were also talking about how they would see some animals that looked like, they were, bothered. And yeah, they're wondering if maybe it was more to the story than just UFOs. Maybe it was this, they had an actual name for it. Let me see if I wrote it down. It was really, really, I'm not sure if I did. And then I thought I did. Well, it may come to me. But there was some individuals who shared about this wolf. They thought, this couldn't be no just crazy kind of wolf or anything like that. So they said, maybe it's part of a descendants of the dire wolves. And the dire wolves were existed up to over 11,500 years ago. And so they think that there might be some variation that maybe was wandering the area for, at that time, right? And so they were considered very robust and large wolves. And, just like dinosaurs and, lizards and all that kind of stuff, things, elephants to the, what was the big things? The woolly mammoths? Yeah, that kind of a thing. So, yeah, that was interesting. That was really interesting. So that's what they find it. That's probably what it was. Maybe it wasn't all of what they thought it was. But then they end up having the Skinwalker Ranch expert who basically shares a story that he says him and another handler was out, I guess, looking and surveying things and observing things. And they came across Skinwalker Ranch Ridge. And they saw like three lights that kind of came together and then kind of poofed and informed this wolf that just kind of walked up to them and looked like they was kind of studying them. And then he just went away. So he didn't fear them or anything like that. And I just thought, well, that's quite interesting. I mean, I don't want to experience any of that, but that was quite interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, look, look, you gotta watch the documentary. It's so funny. But, but that's what he said. And then, of course, they went into the werewolves more. And, they talked about, like the P.T. Barnum circus. I don't know if you guys remember that, but how sometimes you would see those shows of individuals who had different appearances, if you will. And they talked about how, there is an actual condition. It's a rare genetic mutation that's, they would call it werewolf's disease, but it's really called hypertrichosis. And that's just basically having excess body hair. So it made it like, it looked like possibly like fur. That's how thick it was. And I've seen pictures of individuals who have been afflicted by that type of condition. But it's interesting the things that people come up with, isn't it? I mean, they come up with the really craziest stories about things to explain things, because it just isn't just easy to look at something and say, hey, maybe it's this, maybe it's just a condition, maybe it's not a wolf just because they have a lot of hair. I mean, that seems quite insulting to me, if you ask me. But yeah, well, humanity has a long way to go. Yeah, so lots and lots and lots and lots of things that could be versus some of the things that they said. But aren't those some interesting information though? I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? So let's see if I got some other tidbits here that I thought was kind of interesting. Okay, so they said that basically our fascination with vampires and stuff probably surrounds the 1700s time frame, when they had the whole vampire panic, as they called it, where people literally were running around trying to find vampires. I mean, it's the same thing as the Salem witch trials concept, where everybody's running around trying to find a witch. I mean, it's pretty crazy, right? They talk about how there's a lot of stories and a lot of situations that are very mirrored across the world, different versions, but of the same thing when it comes to vampires and werewolves. So that's quite interesting. So they think there might be a little bit of something to it. So who knows? Who knows? So yeah, that was definitely a really good watch, though. I really did enjoy it. I think that the actual laying out of the information, the details that was given, was really interesting. I didn't really think that it was going to go the direction that it went. Quite frankly, I thought I was going to watch a little bit more on the fantasy side of things. So yeah. But it was fun nevertheless. I'm definitely going to check out some of his other documentaries out there. It is about the unexplained of things. So, of course, for me, I don't do like super scary things. So I won't be looking at them all because some that look like a little bit, But again, it was a really good, I really enjoyed it. And if I was to give it a Besties Night-In critic review, I would give it a rating of, honestly, an A, a solid A, because it really was good. It was laid out really nicely. They had really good storytelling. And I just really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up for the main event for tonight. So tell me if you like watching documentaries, or is there anything that you're watching in particular? I'd love to know. Drop it in the comment section, because look, it's so fun to kind of just escape sometimes, isn't it? I mean, it's just fun to just, do things that, don't require much of you, that you can just sit and have a good time. All right. So I am super excited because since we've gone over that wonderful review of the movie, I mean, like I said, it was a good time, really was a good time. But I'm so excited because guess what? It is time for the good news. Yes, the good news. Yes. I love the good news. And I've got a couple of good ones here. Yeah. Yay. So I'm excited. So let's go ahead and start talking about the good news. Okay, so here's the first one. Now, this is an interesting story here. This is basically in the home stretch. A 16-year-old to become the youngest person to circumnavigate the world by airplane. I'm telling you, these kids are doing it all, aren't they? Okay, so here's how the story goes. A 16-year-old British boy is nearing the final leg of his 5-month adventure to become the youngest person to fly around the world solo. Mac Rutherford set off on the daredevil mission from an airbase in Sofia, Bulgaria in March. And if successful, he will become the youngest person to circumnavigate the world solo in an aircraft. He would clinch a Guinness World Record currently held by fellow Brit Travis Ludlow, who was 18 when he completed the mission last year. His sister Zara Rutherford, 19, became the youngest woman to fly around the world solo when GNN, which is the Good News Network, reported that she finished a similar mission earlier this year and still holds the title. After a period in New York, he set off from JFK Airport 2 days hence and will land in the UK at Biggin Hill Airport on Monday, the 22nd, and that's the 22nd of August. The teen is looking, weather permitting, to return to his starting point in Bulgaria and complete his mission on the 24th. So we're talking next week, y'all. I mean, this is so exciting. I'm happy for him, and I'm not even doing it. Over his 5-month trip, Mac headed from Bulgaria to Cagliari and Sardinia. Sorry if I messed that up. Onto Africa, then visiting the Congo, Madagascar, and Mauritius, and then headed north to the UAE, to India, China, South Korea, and Japan before flying to Alaska and continuing along the west coast of America to Mexico. Mac then flew north again along the east coast to Canada, crossing the Atlantic, and will now be stopping in Iceland before the UK. That is so cool. Now, throughout his trip, Mac has faced sandstorms in Sudan, Dubai's extreme heat, airport closures in India, and electrical failures in the system, which pumps his reserve fuel to the aircraft's main tanks. Mac, who qualified for his pilot license in September 2020 and has dual British-Belgian nationality, was born in a family of aviators. His father, Sam, is a professional ferry pilot. His mother, Beatrice, is a private pilot. And his sister, Zara, as mentioned earlier, is also a pilot. Mac became the youngest pilot in the world, aged 15 years and 2 months. Wow, that is like stuff that dreams are made of. He says, I have been fortunate to have had a family that has been able to help me progress in my flying. Max says, who lives on the outskirts of Brussels. But no matter what background you have, I believe it is never too early to work towards your dreams. We talk about that a lot here at Motivation Suite. And you shouldn't limit yourself by others' expectations. This boy is like a genius beyond his age. Yes, I'm here for that, Mac. Mac has flown hundreds of hours with his dad, who was a professional pilot. The flights included 2 transatlantic crossings, but ever since he became a pilot, he has been planning his solo flight around the globe. Mac will also become the youngest person to circumnavigate the world in a microlight, the title held currently by his sister, Zara, after which one images there would be a fair amount of simmering sibling rivalry in future missions. All right. And so here we go here. Just like Zara, Mac has been flying a Shark, a high-performance ultralight aircraft manufactured in Europe. It is one of the fastest ultralight aircraft in the world, with a cruising speed reaching 300 kilometers an hour. The aircraft had been specially prepared for such a long journey, and ICD-Soft, a hosting company and Mac's main sponsor, has very kindly loaned him the plane for the attempt, and he is doing it. This is Mac right here. Look at him. He's so young. So young, doing big things. I mean, what else is he going to do, right? I mean, honestly, this is a pretty big accomplishment. What's next for this young man? Oh, I literally said the sky's the limit. And look, excuse the pun. But I mean, that is fantastic. I mean, super, super fantastic. Yeah. So, oh, wow. That is so good. That is a really good news. All right. So the next up story we've got now, this is for all of my dog lovers and pet lovers, because you're probably going to love this one. This one is for you. Now, this is Island is now a wonderland for penguins once again after a dog helps eradicate 300. See that again. 300,000 invasive rabbits. I can't even. That is a lot. So it looks like here, a UNESCO natural heritage site has been saved from a rabbit and rat rampage. And 8 years after being declared free of the invasives, the island is looking like its old self again. A mere speck in the vast waters that separate Australia from Antarctica, Macquarie Island was listed by UNESCO in 1997 as there was simply nowhere else on Earth like it. And approximately 21 miles long and 3.4 miles wide at its broadest point, the island is the only place in the world where rocks from the Earth's mantle are actively exposed above sea level. Woo! Woo! Yeah, that what is that, geological and scientific element inside of me just like ping ping ping, like that's exciting to me. I'm into like things all about, you know, space and Earth and all that stuff. That's really, really cool. The Macquarie Islands bird life is also extraordinary, and the breeding populations of penguins, including the endemic royal penguin, albatrosses, petrels, and prions, are recognized as one of the greatest concentrations of seabirds in the world. Have you guys saw the Penguin movie? I think 1 and 2. Very cute, very cute. That kind of reminds me of that. You'll see why in a minute. However, just like every other island on Earth, sailors during the 1800s brought cats and rats and mice and rabbits. See, leave it to us humans to be leaving stuff that no one asked for, and rabbits ashore, which decimated the head-high endemic. I don't know why I'm saying that wrong. Vegetation and insect populations, causing knock-on effects that seriously threaten to turn the island into a barren rock. Sometimes things just need to be left alone, don't you think? So now Melissa Houghton has brought ashore as a dog handler. She was brought ashore as a dog handler with her black lab Wags as part of a $24.6 million effort. I think it's Australian dollars. Is that what that means? AU? Effort by Tasmanian. Yeah, that's what that'd be. Australian dollars. Tasmanian and Australia to eradicate the invasive mammals from the island, launched in 2007. So they were like, look, we are taking our place back here. I mean, like, and I'm so glad they're able to do that or start that effort, because like I lived in Guam, and from what I understand, Guam before I moved there was like this beautiful place. Like years ago prior was a beautiful place. And before World War II got there, and there was a lot of cargo planes and stuff that was shipped back and forth, to to Guam and they would bring stuff on those, let's say that the FDA or whatever, whoever clearances you wasn't all that great back then. And so it would be carrying snakes in their cargo and stuff like that. And they literally tore up the entire ecosystem. And so there's like certain types of birds that were able to survive all of that. It was like kind of a mini Hawaii. So the devastation, the ecological devastation that happened to Guam is forever, present. And yeah, they never were able to get it back. So for them to do this effort here, it's a really huge thing. By Houghton's arrival, the island had already eliminated the feral cats and seen this decreased rodent populations thanks to poison bait drops during previous consecutive winters. Fewer numbers both of rodents and seabirds were found on the island during the winter, and it made it ideal time to drop the poison bait, which would also be a welcome food source for the rodents and during the lean times. By 2011, hunters with team dogs came into work on the much diminished populations. But even with the success, Houghton told The Guardian that beyond the stony beaches packed with penguins and elephant seals, the land had been decimated, undermined by constant rabbit devouring. And we all know how rabbits can be, especially people who've got plants and vegetation and stuff like that. You know what they're going through. While the all-you-can-eat buffet of the native Herbecus tussock was trimmed down so far that slime and lichen took hold and sloughing the limited soil down steep hills into the sea. My goodness, they can cause some damage, can't they? You'd have slime and lichen and landslips where albatrosses were trying to raise chicks and survive. Houghton said, I couldn't even envision what the island was meant to look like. She and Wags had the honor of locating the very last rodent, an adult female rabbit and her young in 2014. And since then, the island has rebounded spectacularly. So all their efforts to eradicate them of all of the unwanted visitors and invaders really seem to have worked. And yes, there we go. So it says native orchids and other plants found nowhere else are growing everywhere. Oh, that must be a sight to see. The leafy tussock, which tastes like celery, is now over your head, and the numbers of insects are now very high. Most of the birds that nest there are returning, and their stuff is building nutrients and mass in the soil again. Their stuff. Anyways, no rodent has been seen since 2014. I said that poo. Island eradication is one of the best performing conservation strategies employed worldwide by humans, and many islands from Macquarie to the Galapagos are now free from introduced European pests. Indeed, Macquarie is just one of 181 islands that have since 2000 eradicated over 800 invasive species. Woo! I tell you, that was quite a feat. So you can see all of the penguins up there. I mean, look at that. That's like masses and masses and masses of penguins. This reminds me a lot of the movie. So that is so amazing. And you see here, Houghton and her dog Wags, and that was the last rabbit. Actually, this was a picture of the last rabbit on the island. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. And really, really good news. And so that is 2 of my good news stories. And so I am excited to share about a 3rd one. So yeah, my number 3 good news story is one that I've shared about on Motivation Suite platform and one of my Let's Chat About It videos. So if you have not got a chance to check out the Let's Chat About It series, I also do that with me at times. Go ahead and take a look. I'm thinking it's the video with possibly how to deal with conflict resolution. But you know what? It's okay. But still go see the video anyways. You know what I'll do? I'll pop it up here so that way you can go out and see the whole video because the video is good. But I've got a treat. I'm going to share what number 3 good news stories here as well. And that is, I have opened up my online shop. Yay! I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. So yes, it's called Motivation Sweet Elements, and it is the shop that has all things tangible and good, positive speak. I just think it's nice to have something that you can look at all the time that reminds you of all things you need to have a positive day. And yeah, so really, I thought the fun thing to do was just go ahead and just show you a bit of a sneak peek. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look. Yay! Motivation Sweet Elements online shop is arrived. So I'm so excited about this. And that is my good news for this week. But definitely make sure you go ahead and check out a look at my shop. Yeah, the link is down below in the description area, and you also see it running along the bottom of the screen as well. But yeah, get yourself some uplifting joy. There is so much to choose from, and when I say that was a sneak peek, I really was just a sneak peek. There's so many good things out there for you to take a look at, and there's so much available for you, your loved ones, and the special somebodies, your family members, and your friends. So yeah, go ahead and give it a check out. And if you do happen to get anything, purchase anything from there, hey, let me know what you got. I would love to know. But yeah, I'm so excited about my online shop, and so I hope that you will enjoy the perusing and take time to visit it. So yeah, and I enjoyed all of the good news stories that we got here. I mean, there was some great information, right? I mean, it's so nice to listen about the good news. There's a lot of not so great news. So, but yeah, and the documentary, The Unexplained by William Shatner. Go ahead and check that out on Netflix. I mean, it was a really good time. I mean, I absolutely enjoyed it. And yeah, I will probably not watch that one again because I saw it a couple of times and it is a little bit spooky a little bit. But hey, I mean, yeah, a little bit, I kind of dip and dabble a little bit, but not all the way in, right? I like the fun stuff. But yeah, but it was just so much fun spending time with you guys. I hope that you enjoyed Bestie's Night In with me. And yeah, because I enjoyed it with you. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and just get a lot of rest and have a good time. And yeah, just have some fun. I think I'm going to take my own advice and do that very thing. So I guess without further ado, I will bid you adieu. And again, take care, be safe, and until next time, bye.